Long ago and far away, in enchanted lands across the seas, lived kings and queens, princes and princesses, good fairies and wicked witches, ferocious giants and gentle dwarfs. Their adventures and stories have been told for hundreds of years. Open the pages and listen to the words, and you too can join the magical world of Once Upon a Time.
Thumbelina. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful and gentle woman whose dearest wish was to have a child of her own. But she was very sad because her dream would not come true. Then, one day, she met the left-handed fairy. She was called this because she always held her wand in her left hand when she was granting people's wishes. The left-handed fairy was very kind, and when she heard the woman's sad story, she promised to help. She gave her a handful of magic seeds, and waving her wand, she said, "Sow these seeds in a green meadow. Watch them carefully, and your wish will come true." The woman hurried home and scattered the seeds in a sunny spot in a corner of a green meadow. She waited, her heart beating with excitement, and then, before her eyes, a beautiful red flower sprang out of the earth and grew up tall and straight. The petals were tightly closed, and the woman leant forward and gently kissed them. With a pop, the petals opened, and there, in the center of the flower, was the most delicate, pretty little girl imaginable. The woman laughed with delight. "Oh, what a beautiful child!" she exclaimed. "Her hair is golden as corn, and her skin is pink as a rose, but she is no bigger than half my thumb. I shall call her Thumbelina." The woman made her a perfect cradle out of half a walnut shell. She polished it until it shone and lined it with soft green leaves for a mattress and a pink rose petal for a cover. To amuse Thumbelina during the day, the woman filled a dish with water, placed it on the table, and surrounded it with flowers. Thumbelina thought it was a lake, and she spent her time rowing backwards and forwards in a hollowed-out leaf, talking to the butterflies that flitted around. She was so happy, and at night she slept peacefully, tucked up in her walnut shell. Then, one night, a big, ugly, wet toad hopped in through the window and up to Thumbelina's bed.
"Oh, ho!"
thought the toad.
"She would make a nice wife for my eldest son."
And with that, he scooped up the walnut shell and crept quietly out. Only a little caterpillar, nestling among the flowers, saw the ugly toad carrying off Thumbelina. He tried to call out and raise the alarm, but of course, caterpillars cannot be heard. The ugly toad carried Thumbelina back to his pond and put her on the furthest water lily leaf.
"Where am I?"
she cried when she woke in the morning. All she could see was water, and then, on a nearby leaf, she saw the toad family. There was the ugly toad who had carried her away and his wife. With them was their eldest son, who was the ugliest toad Thumbelina had ever seen.
"Good morning," croaked the toad. "This is my son, who I have decided you are going to marry. Isn't he handsome?" You really are a very lucky girl.
Thumbelina didn't think she was lucky at all. She started to weep bitterly.
She'll soon cheer up once you are married.
Laughed the toad as he hopped away. The fish in the pond felt very sorry for Thumbelina, and as soon as the toad had gone, they nibbled through the stem of the lily leaf, and Thumbelina floated away. Thumbelina sailed on the lily leaf out of the pond and into a nearby brook. She was very relieved to have escaped from the clutches of the dreadful toad family, and she smiled happily as she floated further and further away. Suddenly, she heard the sound of flapping wings, and looking up, she saw a giant Maybug swooping down on her from the sky. Thumbelina screamed as the insect picked her up in his hairy legs and carried her off. He flew over the riverbank and across the meadows to his nest on the edge of the wood. He thought Thumbelina was very pretty, and he would quite like to marry her. He set her down outside his nest and proudly called to all the other Maybugs.
Come and look at this beautiful creature I've found.
One by one, the other insects arrived, and they stared at Thumbelina.
Oh, but she's very skinny,
Laughed the first one.
Where are her wings?
Said the second.
She's only got 2 legs.
Exclaimed another. The poor Maybug felt really embarrassed. He thought she was beautiful, but maybe the others were right. So he let Thumbelina go, and she wandered through the fields and woods, spending her days looking for food and shelter. The first chill of autumn arrived, and poor Thumbelina wrapped herself in a leaf to keep warm. But worse was to come. Winter brought icy winds and snow, and Thumbelina struggled to keep warm. Even the leaves that she used to wrap herself in shriveled and died, and every snowflake that fell on her almost covered her from head to toe. One day, numb with cold and hunger, Thumbelina saw a golden light glowing from the base of a tree. As she crept closer, she saw that a little door led to a warm and inviting kitchen. She peeped in and saw an old field mouse tapping towards her, leaning on his walking stick. Thumbelina walked slowly forward. "Excuse me, Mr. Field Mouse. I'm sorry to ask you, but could you spare me a mouthful of food and a few minutes by your fire to warm me through?" The field mouse was a kindly old soul, and he looked tenderly at the tiny frozen girl.
"Well, my dear, you do look cold and hungry. Come in and let's see what I can do."
Soon Thumbelina was sitting in front of the glowing fire in the field mouse's kitchen, sipping warm milk and toasting her toes. She told the field mouse all about her sad story. The field mouse was getting old, and he found it difficult to keep his little house clean and tidy. When he heard Thumbelina's story, he had an idea.
"In return for dusting and sweeping my house,"
he said,
"you could stay here, and I will give you food and look after you."
Thumbelina was overjoyed. "Oh, thank you," she said. "I'd love to stay."
It's time to turn over to side 2.